Oh,
All right,
Vicky is taking notes to.
let's get rolling here. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Hopkinton Budget Committee. It's April 14th, 2022. And we will start with the pledge. And Debbie, can we ask you?
oh, I'd be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, great. We are going to first welcome our newest member, Victoria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself for a minute?
Sure. Hello, I'm Vicky. You can call me Vicky, and I live over next door to the police station, which is right on the cusp of the Hopkinton Village precinct, but I am in the precinct and I'm not on the Board of Commissioners. I am the clerk for the Board of Commissioners, and Thomas had to step down because of his new role. And so he asked me if I would do it. And I said, of course, because I'm from here and I love this town and we bought my mother's house. And so I'm excited to join in and help out. And I am actually a bookkeeper, so I like to read the statements.
Uh-oh, Ken. You ready?
No, it's the school. We have to be careful.
That's great. Thank you for volunteering.
Sure, I'm
for
happy.
joining us. The real question is, are you on the precinct water? Because
No, I'm not. I take a little umbrage with being in the precinct at all because I have no sidewalk and no water and there's no reason for me to be in the precinct. But
just pay the assessment.
according to Thomas, and I do appreciate this, it's he said that it has potentially something to do with proximity to the fire station. In terms of the radius that they drew.
Oh, I see. Well, again, welcome and thank you. Okay, so we are gonna, for next order of business, we've got to select a chair and a vice chair. And so we will open it up to nominations for a chair.
I'll nominate the current chair.
I'll second.
Okay. Anybody else want to raise their hand to be the chair? Competition is welcome. Or nominate. Okay, so I'm gonna call, yeah, let's do them one at a time. I guess I will abstain from this vote, but I think I can call the vote.
Well, do we have any discussion
Oh, yeah, do you
of
want to
your
discuss?
qualifications?
Oh, yeah,
for being
would you
chair?
like to discuss my qualifications? Do you want me to discuss my qualifications?
Not really.
You're the voter.
I'll make this one an easy vote. I think you do a great job chairing the budget committee. I think you ask good questions and you run an effective meeting.
Thank you, Norm.
I think you're doing okay.
So who are you going to nominate?
I'm not.
That's all. Okay, so Ken has motioned and Jonathan is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Me?
I abstain.
Mark abstains. Vicky abstains.
And Vicky, you're abstaining?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know you, but I'm sure that you're doing a great job.
Do you live in the precinct?
I don't. I used to
You
though.
used to.
Yes. For almost 20 years.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
Great. So now we will move on to vice chair. Can we entertain a motion for nominations?
I'll nominate Jonathan.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other nominations for the vice chair role?
I'd like to know his qualifications.
I don't know. What's the qualification for this? I'm sitting next to Mark.
You're one of the better dressed people at the meeting. You have proven yourself able
By
to step up
height.
into the chair role. Okay, any further discussion? I should say, Vicky, thank you for your willingness to take minutes today.
Sure.
Much appreciated.
No problem.
And I know the position has been posted, but it's greatly appreciated. Okay, all in favor of the nomination of Jonathan Cohen as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions?
I will abstain.
Super. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, next up, we are going to approve the public hearing minutes. It feels like a lifetime ago, February 9th, 2022. You received the minutes in an email. So let me first ask for a motion to approve the minutes. Debbie moved and Ken seconded. Are there any comments on the minutes? Our minute taker is no longer here, so can't take it up with her, but you could take it up with me. Okay. All in favor of approving the public hearing minutes of February 9th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? Vicky abstains. Great. Okay, over to you, Ken, town financials.
Sure. People should have gotten the two-page summary of revenues and expenses by email, and then there were hard copies here if anybody didn't receive them. Remember the town is on a calendar year basis, so this report covers the first 3 months of our year, 25%. When I look at the revenue side, the percentage is running lower than 25%. It's really due to timing. And I'll just point out, as I have in many years, that state payments for rooms and meals, the block grant, et cetera, usually come in towards the end of the calendar year. So that's what drives the percentage down initially. On the positive side, motor vehicle permit fees is running a little bit above budget, and if that continues, that could turn out to be roughly 100,000 above budget. So as I said at town meeting, please buy new cars, expensive new cars. Is there any question on the revenue side? On the expense side, running a little bit higher than the 25%. And a lot of that is timing, that there are certain costs that are paid in advance, say for fire, mutual aid dispatches has been paid for the whole year. That's what's the driver there. On personnel administration, it's workers' comp is the big thing that drives that over the 25%. But, and then the other item I mentioned is debt service, principal and interest. And that again is just timing issues where we've made some payments basically for the year already. Again, where this is so early in the year, things look good. But I'll ask if there's any questions.
Ken, when do you anticipate doing the bond for the barn?
I think we're assuming we go through the bond bank. It would be the summer is when they issue.
Yeah, you can do the summer, but there's also a bond anticipation note that you can get that will allow you to do the work earlier too. So since the town approved it.
We don't need that. We have got the other the stimulus money.
Oh, that's right.
The ARPA,
600,000.
yeah, I think your answer is the summer.
Is there a cap on it? Do you know what it would fall in based on the interest rates right now?
No, I don't know that. And I know I'm looking at the interest rates and
Yeah,
I'm glad it's a small one.
yeah, me too.
Presumably the sooner the better, right?
That's what I was asking.
Yeah,
I figured.
yeah. But the bond bank, I think, only has it twice a year.
I see.
Ken, what projects can we expect this summer? What sort of road projects can we expect this summer to see? Briar Hill Road, I think, is one.
Talking to Dan Blanchett, the Tyler, finish the Tyler Bridge. It's going to be
I'm sorry, what did you say?
the finished Tyler Bridge. And where costs have gone up considerably, yeah, he can't tell me what, if anything else will happen.
Thank you.
Anything else for Ken?
Just a quick question. Is there some like town celebration thing in Elmbrook Park being discussed? And
It's
the specific question is there part of the police budget that's going to go to that, or is that all going to be privately funded?
good question. Actually, it was the September 24th at Elm Brook, the Police Officers Association and the Chamber are the ones that are sponsoring it. At this point, there's no town money involved. They did at our last meeting, ask for 15,000, and they did not get a response. I think we're going to. I'm not anticipating any town money going into
Yeah, Police Officers Association.
that. Would be an outside fund with
Yeah.
donations.
Okay. Thanks.
Deb?
Ken, I'm not sure this question would be directed to you, but the tree that they took down by the fire department in Kentucky, how does that get, how does that move forward now?
It's the guy next to you.
Sorry.
It was the Kentucky precinct was the one responsible for the tree. So I can't answer that, and I was hoping that Dawn, representing the precinct, might be able.
I have very little information on that. I just know it got taken down. Kind of a character, somebody put a dead Christmas tree back there in its place, which was kind of comical. But my understanding is that they're going to put another transplant in there, 6, 7, 8 feet tall.
That's what it said, but so this is two different discussions now, because I have questions on the original discussion, but so who decided to take the tree down?
Will that answer it?
But it was publicized that it was the precinct's decision to take it down.
Right.
I guess the precinct commissioners.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's a question, I mean,
I
it was a
have,
little bit of a stir kind of going to the select board, but
right. I
yeah.
have not been at the last meeting. I was
Okay.
not able to go to that one, but I know there was some discussion. Not too many people have said one way or the other, but it was just got to the point, my understanding, yeah, it got to the point where lights could not be put on it because we didn't have anybody that would volunteer to put it up there. Yankee Tree was doing it for up until this last couple of years. I took it down because of that, because I can't decorate it. In the past, it's been that it was some reason that it was obscuring the visibility in that intersection. But I think the main reason was that they couldn't adequately light it. Okay. It's not the first time that's happened with taking the tree down. They about a 25-year rotation. There was a comical story for the first one. This was back, one of my high school classmates had a seizure as he was coming up to the stop sign there at the fire station. And instead of keeping the brake on, he hit the full throttle in his car
Oh, wow.
and literally went through part of the tree, hit the sidewalk on the other side, and literally launched the car into that house that is for sale right there.
Oh, wow.
A friend of ours, I knew him well. He hollered up to his wife, "What are you doing, dear? Did you fall out of bed?" And we went through the living room in there. The car was totally in there. It was just the lights showing in the rear of it
Wow.
in that front window. A side story.
So was the tree sick?
No.
It was just too big.
Correct.
It was just too big to put lights on, so they took it down.
It couldn't have been pruned.
I don't know any of those questions.
Okay.
It was a monster. I know
I
that.
know.
I saw him putting the lights on. It's like, whoa, way up there.
So the financial aspect of that then would come from the precinct.
I'm assuming so.
Did Dearborn do it for free?
I don't know that either.
Who is the current commissioner over the precinct?
Well, Chris Baudet is the chair. You know, call him and ask him. I'm sure he'll. Tom Yastrzemski is another one. And the third one,
Mike Metcalf,
pardon?
Mike Metcalf.
Right, Mike
Oh,
Metcalf.
right. Okay, well, thank you. I was just wondering.
I had asked Mike about it, and he had missed the last couple of commissioner meetings, so he wasn't aware of it either.
Yeah, I know there was a directive towards the select board, but it wasn't a select board
Yeah.
decision. And then it bounced back to the precinct and I guess there wasn't enough notification to the community, I guess, to say goodbye or or to find a reasonable person to do the lights or make an offer, but it's gone, so.
Steve, you had a different
Well,
question.
So, I mean, obviously, I just saw what probably all of us saw on Facebook was that, obviously the Strawberry Festival, 4th of July, historically very active, and we did fireworks that time, and then the new police chief kind of said that, since that hadn't been done the last few years, that this would be like a different community event. I guess my real question for the budget committee, is there discretionary money for something like that built into the town budget? Or are you, because you said they did come to you and ask for part of the money.
There is not money built in for fireworks.
Right. And do we know who used to fund the 4th of July, the Strawberry Festival? Was that totally private? Or was that included, any of that in the town budget? Because that was a very active.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, I believe it would have been private. Rich, you.
I remember the fire department used to go out and hold their big firemen's boots out as people were coming in and put donations in the fire. I think the fire department did fundraising for that. But that was a long time ago.
So the community center used to pay for the Strawberry Festival, like Mrs. Allen used to pay for the Strawberry Festival, at least like the actual strawberries and lemonade and stuff like that. But it was probably a good fundraiser for the community center and the fire department.
Good. Okay. Ken? Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Chairman. That's how I like to be addressed.
How's that going for you?
It doesn't work at home. It's probably not going to work here.
I was looking on my.
Okay, Norm, the school district financials update.
Sure. I'm gonna go down here. Always great seeing our student here.
Norm, if you're gonna do that, can you grab one of those mics? So,
Easier to project to you.
hold on
guys,
for you.
so,
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Is anybody watching?
I don't know. I can't quite tell. We just have the YouTube live thing on. Oh, actually, I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It's on YouTube. Somebody's watching.
No, no, well, somebody could be watching on YouTube. We wouldn't know. Nobody's on the Zoom. There's probably a lot of people watching YouTube. That's my guess.
Great. It's great to be back. It's great to see you all again. I want to congratulate the town on a successful district meeting for them. I thought it went really well for you guys. I'd like to thank the town for supporting our budget. I thought we had a successful meeting. I think we could see that times have changed with how our meetings are working, with more communication out to the community. I thought it was a great meeting for this town to see that our budget got passed, and thank you for your opening statement for the school district, Mark, as the chair of this committee. So the first thing I want to discuss a little bit is about our current financials, because it rolls in a little bit into what happened at the district meeting. So when we look at our March 31st statement, one of the things that's important to look in there is the unreserved fund balance. What's important to understand is that we allocated 525,000 from that to put towards articles in our district meeting. And then we made an amendment as a board to take 100,000 from the reserve fund balance and not ask the town to raise and appropriate an additional 100,000 for maintenance trusts. So as of right now, our unreserved fund balance is 527,000. That's with all the stuff taken out for the warrants. What's important about that is Rich had emailed Mark and Mark asked me about some RFPs that are out for the school district. And I want to address a little bit of that right now. So as you know, our fiscal year ends on June 30th. And what happens then is the board has discretion on what they want to do with the unreserved fund balance. In order for us to get an accurate number, we have to submit RFPs out to multiple channels in order for us to determine what an actual quote is for us to be able to know what we're spending for that June 30th window. So we have a quote out for landscaping to help improve our school district, in its appearance, something that is significantly lacking that Mike has sent out. Upgrades to the SAU office that he felt that potentially we will need, that's currently out right now, just so the board can have a discussion on what is going on and what we can do. And then the other one that we discussed last night was an RFP for a generator over at Harold Martin. This is just preliminary discussions right now about the generator. The chief asked us to get an RFP, which we're going to do, but it may not be needed due to the source code that we received from the building project from BPS, that we have a high enough output of electricity going to that location. But it's a discussion to talk with the chief at our next safety meeting. But in order for us to plan for the future, we wanted to get a number so we can decide what we want to do. What's important about this unreserved fund balance is that I'm committed to, as soon as we allocate the resources, to do a turnaround and give you guys a non-audited communication of where the money went. It seems like every budgeting process, we go back to that moment of what happens with the unreserved fund balance. And I want to be able to have it, for one of our first meetings when we come back from break, to share with you guys where the money goes and what the starting balance is for the trust and all that stuff. So when we go into budgeting season, we know where the money went. So that's an important window right now for us with our budgeting process, is that the finance committee will make a recommendation to us based on that number. The guiding point for us last night that I spoke to was how much we could put away to Article 10, because with our goal as a district to eliminate an unreserved fund balance for future budgeting process, it's really going to be important for us to capitalize the maximum opportunity to that article, because we don't know what could happen for unanticipated expenses down the road. So they're going to make a recommendation to us probably in May, and then we'll have our RFPs and our information to determine what we want to do with that balance. Is there any questions on that? Sure.
I think I understand this, but let me just test. So those RFPs are for unbudgeted and currently unapproved by the school board or otherwise, potential investments. And you're getting that so that you might decide to put some of the unreserved fund balance above and beyond the 525 that's already been committed.
Correct.
To offset taxes. You might put some of that or obligate some of that towards one or more of those expenses, which you would need to do by the end of the fiscal year.
Correct.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. We have not decided on anything yet. We are just watching what we have here. And once we see the numbers, we'll address it, because inflation is really high right now on a lot of things. So what comes back is a discussion. But does that answer your question, Rich, on what we're trying to do?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I just had a question about the generator. If that's
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
Can you please explain why the Harold Martin School needs a generator?
Fire suppression.
Oh,
Yes, that's what, yes. Great. Thank you for that, because that's a lot more clear. So the chief had asked for a quote, generator over at Harold Martin for the fire suppression. And again, there's a source code from BPS saying there was enough power going there, but it's a discussion I want to have with it.
What does that mean? There's enough power going there?
So there's a certain, I learned this through the building project, there's a certain code that's basically tells you the odds or the probability of you losing power in that location. Since we're so close to the grid here, the chances of us losing power there is very, from my understanding, hasn't happened like nearly ever. Because it's a good location. And so they determine the probability of something happening based on this specific code. So there needs to be a discussion of bridging that with, you know, the school board, the chief, and the building project, make sure it's all on the same page to protect our schools. So, yeah.
Is there solar on that building?
No, so, no.
wouldn't help anyway.
Well,
Batteries.
right, that was gonna be my next question, if there was.
But we can talk about that later, but that is something down the road regarding sustainable energy we're gonna be looking at. We're working on our first policy for that, which is great. That we're gonna be looking at having some things in the school district in the future for sustainable energy. It's just got released to us last night. It was our first reading, but it's a very much an in-depth conversation because there's a cost associated with that. And so we gotta be careful with how we approve that. That would have ramifications on our budgeting process for years to come. But I think it's very important that we have something in place because I strongly believe in it. So.
Will you be having a public discussion about that?
Yeah, we will. And I can definitely let you know when it is. It will be, and I'm part of a students group that's in our district that's very much behind this, that have been asking for that. And it's also part of our strategic planning too, that we are looking into that. As you know, with anything in the district, before anything happens, it has to be set as a goal and as a charge for us to act upon. So these are the first steps in order to get, you know, sustainable energy in our schools and moving forward. And I know, Mark, with your company, with where you work and with Jim, they're good resources for us to learn and understand, which will help us a lot in this project. So.
If I might, it's not a question for you, Norm. It was just something that had come up at the select board the other night that sort of fits into this that I thought was very interesting. The town owns the dam in Kentucky Village, and it's been under a 40-year agreement that expires next year. And something we're going to be starting to look at is, do we want to renew it? Do we want to take it over and get the power? What do we want to do with it? But I think it's something that's certainly gotten me very interested.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's the agreement with?
I don't know. the name.
Algonquin? Is it Algonquin Power still?
It was an entity out of Vermont.
Oh,
So,
got sold.
yeah.
Used to be Canadian.
So in your packet, I submitted an updated tax rate impact that was from our meeting. So instead of it being 116, it went down to 104. That was after the amendment that happened at the school meeting. Michelle and I updated this and she resent it to the board for approval. So you guys can kind of see where the money's coming from, the reserve fund balance, and then from Article 10. And definitely want to fine tune this in the future for future budget process so we all understand what is coming from what. The next thing I want to share with you is the building committee is no longer around. It's been dissolved with the motion of $406,000 to go back to the school district for maintenance. Last night we held a public hearing because what we need to do is to have the community understand that, you know, we did everything that was required in the bond project, but the remaining balance that's going toward that's going to go towards maintenance to help us alleviate pressure in our CIP. It is not to be used for a one-time project of a new developed whatever. It's like, with all the respects, like Rob last night, like not for air conditioning. That's not what the town was voting for when they voted for the bond. We want to try and alleviate maintenance, like if it's a boiler or if it's something like that, the windows or more carpet. That is the direction that we're trying to do. What we are trying to accomplish in our next meeting is the CIP committee will make a recommendation to use the rest of the 406 to go towards our CIP, and then the funds will be done. We have until next year to use it all. But again, we're trying to do our budgeting process earlier and to know what we can allocate. I'm pleased to say that we are going to have a 5-year plan where you guys will be able to see what we're budgeting for CIP to really be able to have it more in depth. So with having this 406, it will help alleviate us in the future and tell us what our budgeting process is for maintenance trust for years to come. So we're on the right path.
And I heard you say that the 406 has to be used within a year.
Yeah, by next year, yeah. Yep. And, you know, again, that's at a really low rate, which we have right now, so, but.
Did you say that you would consider the boiler replacement with those funds?
It could be with, it's to help alleviate pressure in the CIP, not for new projects. We have to back up.
Oh, I see. So existing, so things you know about as opposed to wish list stuff.
Correct. Yeah, no wish list stuff.
One on the boiler, I had a question
Yep.
about that because as that begins to move forward, there will be public meetings so people can have some input as to
Oh, yeah.
different options.
Yeah, I know that there was an RFP out there for a different type of boiler. And I don't want to say the number out loud because I think, I hope I heard it wrong, but it was really high. And I don't want to say nothing's set in stone for what they want to use for energy resource, but we, you know, the board's very conscious of, you know, sustainable energy, doing something, you know, different burning mechanism, whatever we can, but there's a cost associated with that. So the 406 will go very quickly, but we just want to make sure we're using it for the right things in CIP, because it's a benefit to the town that we can continue to improve on maintenance. And I think it was a good point last night, instead of seeing deferred maintenance, because we really have caught up to what we needed to do in our schools. Great. So the last thing is some personnel, which I'll unpack the best I can. So last night we hired a new vice principal over at the high school. As you know, Rebecca Gagnon was not coming back in that role. And last night the board accepted a nomination for a new vice principal, which will start after July 1st. Is there any questions about that?
Where's Rebecca going?
That's going to be the follow-up question after this. So, so the next thing is, you know, with Mike being on the job for not even a year, you know, his goal has been to change our hiring practices and really focus on how we can improve our district with how we hire in and how we take an early retirement and applying it to our budgeting practice. This year we had about 5 early retirements taken. Originally it was 3, and then I asked the board and the board agreed to reopen it, and we got an additional 2 with an additional 1 that's pending right now. So a total of 6 additional early retirements have been taken. With that and additional movement in our curriculum and in other areas of the school budget, Mike was able to come up with a position of a curriculum director, which the school district has hired Rebecca Gagnon for that. They had a substantial amount of candidates for both positions, and Mike was very confident in both candidates and addressing them in their need. Very happy for this position. I'm happy how Mike did his job in the hiring practices. And he's absolutely happy to talk to you guys about when he comes next time. I think if, as you guys know, when you have someone leave the district and they retire, the goal generally is, based on that position, is you hire at a lower wage. And if you take 5 wages and you hire someone with a difference of 30,000 per 5, that's enough to hire a position while maintaining your budget. This is definitely something that this district has asked for, and we worked around with Mike doing his job, and I'm excited to see the changes move forward in that position for the district. One thing that was discussed last night is people assumed that there was going to be a budget increase in our budget next year for that, and that is not the case. I want to make that very clear. That the practicing of personnel and how our hiring practices have changed is really important to understand that was a goal. Yeah.
So the positions that there were the early retirements
Yep.
will be replaced.
Yep.
So there will be.
I mean, there's going to be, however he does it, yeah, it's going to be replaced. Yep.
So basically, it's not that we are having fewer positions
Mhm.
for classroom sizes and things. And
Yep.
and then we're adding the curriculum. And when you figure in the cost.
Yep.
Yes, Norm?
Yeah.
I'm asking, that's great, first of all, that,
Yeah.
did it that way. But my question would be that the curriculum developer, even though those costs may be covered within the savings that because of the retirement from people that had a lot of years.
Yep.
And you're hiring less.
Yep.
Is there any look when we're figuring income, what the cost is to the town on the long term? Because we've got another position. We had the 6. We're replacing that. We've added the curriculum director. So in essence, we've added another position that will have insurance, health, and retirements. And how does that figure?
It figures out to be like this, because I mean, the direction of hiring somebody at a specific wage, at a specific rate is the direction of the superintendent. So if he says for this specific kindergarten class, this is the budgeted amount, that's the budgeted amount, and then it goes by years and they hire it that way. So, when it comes to the salaries and benefits and all that stuff, as you know, with you hire a new person in our district, they're paying 7% in, which is very important to understand. You take 7% across 6 new people, that's a much big change instead of what it was before when it was 100% covered. So what I'm saying to the budget committee is that hiring practices have changed. He's spending what he's allowed to spend. There's no increase in the budget based on this position. He's allocating his resources each year, looking at what our students need, what class sizes need to be looked at. And every year there's a different hiring slate for this teachers. There's people who do not come back. There's still pending positions that has not been filled. So there's a lot of missing pieces that he has to fill within his budget with these positions.
Just Norm, I'm curious, and this is a question for Mike, I'm sure, but
Sure.
If he has 5 or 6 teacher positions to fill, and he has moved forward with the curriculum director, how does he have confidence that he can fill all those jobs at that lower wage scale, given what's going on in the labor market and specifically in the teachers' labor market?
So I can kick a stab at it if you'd like. When a job is posted in Hopkinton, it is overwhelmed. And I can tell you, last night, I think it was 31 for this vice principal. It was 17 for a curriculum director. So there's people who are hungry to get into a good school district. But, as a superintendent, he has to do his job and stick to what he needs to stick with. And that is strictly a new hiring process and going from there. So.
Just to follow up on that question, Michelle, follow up. Is that the same with teachers? So I hear that on the admin side. Is that the same on the teaching side? Because anecdotally, it certainly seems like teachers are leaving that profession in droves right now. So does the board and does he feel confident that the 6 teachers will be replaced?
So I don't want to say, I probably shouldn't say 6 teachers. I should say it's just 6 positions, because there's a lot of people who early retirement that were maybe special ed or stuff like that. So there's many different fields that really, I apologize if I misspoke in that.
No, I don't think you did. I think
No, it's totally okay. So I never hate seeing people leave, but it is great that we were able to have those resources to wish them the best, but also focus on improve it in our hiring process.
And then one other question are the class sizes going to change next year in terms of the ratio of students to teachers?
Great question. So the goal of the district from when we did our budgeting process is that we want to maintain those four sections right now. We've not seen no dip in class sizes at all happen for what we've seen. It's hard to hire a teacher to come in for 1 year. You're not going to get a quality candidate when they know they're not going to be back the following year. So if you're able to maintain kindergarten through 6, 4 sections, if you have the appropriate class sizes. I don't want to have a teacher in there for 9 kids, but if it's the main, 17 or 18, it's a good feeling for the culture of this district to have that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the last thing is we are almost done with our strategic plan, and thank you for Jonathan for his help and support on that. We have one final meeting to vote on it. We did our final edits yesterday. And once Jonathan and I do our vote, the vote will go to the school board. Then, Jonathan, what's his name again? I don't
know.
Brian? Is it Brian?
Could be. Whoever the consultant is.
The consultant, forgot his name, I'm sorry, but the consultant will do a presentation to the board, and the board will review any changes that they want to make has to be done in public. So we can't be emailing each other asking to change things. It has to be done in public because this strategic plan has gone through community feedback, through a group of people in the community and volunteers to really set forth its best recommendation to the board.
Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes.
Thank you, Rick. Rick Barnes is his name. So I'm excited to get that started. I mean, we already checked off the box on a couple things, but once that approved, I'm definitely happy to bring it to you guys so you guys can see the good work that we've done and see that there's going to be a plan in place of us being able to check the box off where we need to do. So I think it's great. We had a lot of people participate in it, a lot. Thousands. That is all I have. Does anyone have any other? Yes.
After the town and school district meetings, there was some discussion that I had with constituents about per student costs.
Yep.
In the district.
Yep.
One question that after some discussion with people, the question that came up in my mind was the building project that we just got done, $10 million project. How much extra student capacity was added of that 10 million? In other words, how many actual classrooms did we build and how much can those classrooms hold with new students? at Harold?
So the bond was for 3 classrooms. We ended up doing 4 classrooms.
Yep.
All at Harold.
All Harold Martin. We improved space in other locations of the project to help with the computer lab, the library and all that. But, I'm not sure how to solve that. I'm not sure how to get that. I mean, class sizes are 20, 19.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's nothing big.
and of those 4 classrooms, how much of the $10 million was spent for those 4 classrooms with 20 students each? How would I figure that out?
So that's a great question. So what I'm working on is getting a final report from BPS on the whole project. And so what we can do is when I get the final report, I can bring it here once the board approves it. And it's going to break down everything that we did in the project from Harold Martin and then from every adult that we did. And then at the end of that specific report, it should say 406 left over from the project because, well, that's how accounting works. So if it's different from that, I mean, it could deviate a little bit from some things that are still pending, but other than that, it should be pretty clear.
I noticed from my discussions with citizens at the end of the meetings was that there's a school of thought that says that we can add students to our district at no cost because the heating bill will be the same even if you add a student. The teachers are already hired in that year, so you can put in a student here or maybe 5 students, spread them out through the district, and it won't cost you anything. But after that citizen brought up that question, I thought to myself, well, we just had this building project where we spent millions to add new capacity. So you really can't say that if we just spent millions to add new students. So you can't put new students in if you just are making payments on a loan to add their capacity.
Every student it costs us for every student.
Right.
To pay, when, if we would get more money from the state, that'd be great, but we only get $3,500 per student. So it brings a little bit of revenue, but there's a cost associated for every student, from, teachers' time to other areas that need to book supplies. There's a cost associated with it.
I was just trying to get a number to it. How much?
Didn't she give it to, oh, you mean on the building project?
Yeah, like how much did it cost us to add one chair in that classroom? All those classrooms. There must be a way we can nail that figure down.
So I'm gonna ask you, what is, as a budget committee member, what is the goal of that information?
Because citizens wanted to know how much it costs to add new students to our district. Like if we had a development, okay, this is theoretical, right?
Yeah.
If we had a development and we could somehow know that development was going to add 9 students.
Yes.
We could say, okay, if we do this development, it's going to cost us $10,000
Yeah,
for the
okay.
students. But right now, I couldn't answer that question directly.
That's a really good question. I'm not sure how to get that. I mean, I'd have to look how much it costs for the addition, for that. And
How
then
much did it cost for that new seat in the school?
all the way down to like a chair and a desk. I mean, I
think it's a round number because like when you build a theater,
yeah,
you say that theater cost me $20,000 a seat to build it.
okay.
How much did it cost us to put that extra space in the district?
So you'd take the cost of the addition by 4 classrooms, right? And then you would take the capacity of those classrooms and say there's 20, 20, 20, 20, right? And there's 80 students. Okay. And then you can take the supplies. We have a cost for the furniture that we received. Some of it was donated, some too, I believe, so. Okay, I see where you're getting. Sorry to question you back. I just wanted to have a clear understanding
It's
of
a
what.
round figure. I'll kill you.
I will talk to Mike about that, or Michelle. They'll know the answer.
This goes to the classic question that every town has to wrestle with is it good to have the student population grow? And we just had this discussion at the select board's meeting where a new person wanted to add houses, and his comment was, I'm adding tax dollars to the town, so we should have as much growth as we possibly can. And he wanted to, add a few more houses on a particular road that he was on. The counter statement to that is, it costs us money. You don't get the tax money out of a single home if a person moves in with 3 children. It just doesn't balance out. But that's a catch-22 type discussion as to you need to fill the capacity to meet your fixed cost. You just described, you have a building, you have teachers. You need a fixed cost cover, and that's about 1,000 students for Hopkinton. If we all of a sudden had 60 more homes built and they averaged, 2 kids a building, if they all came in the one class, which they wouldn't do, you then have a problem. But if you can filter them into all the other spots that have vacancies in schools, rooms, then it's okay. It's a good deal. But that's a classic statement that there really is no answer to.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the fact that not all students cost the same.
Right.
If a student needs accommodation because they have a learning disability, that can skew all these numbers tremendously.
But depending on which way you're trying to tell the story, whether you're trying to get, the ability to have more houses built, then that's more tax revenue. But on the other side of the school issue or the taxpayers issues is, well, if we have all this new housing development, we're going to have to spend more money building more classrooms. And that's, I remember going back 30 some years ago, when we wrote the policy that was going to develop, control all this. At that point, we had 60 housing starts a year, and we were going to be killed with that. So we went to court, wrote a master plan, and eliminated it at 60. Well, the next year, I think we had 5 or 6. So there was a whole bunch of effort, but it's in place now. And if you talk with Karen, the planning director, you know, she remembers when they were camping outside here, literally lined up in tents, trying to get one of those 60. And they were overnight campers, and then that thing just sort of disappeared. But that's been a classic argument forever.
But this,
Steve,
this
hey,
is-
Rich, pardon me for a second, just because Steve had his hand up.
Oh,
Come back. to you.
Well, I mean, it's the same discussion. I mean, from my perspective, and I think people have asked this question, and it goes back to some things historically that either happened or didn't happen in our district where other districts wanted to come on board. But theoretically, you could plug in, I'm just going to throw out a number, 20 students into our district without having a huge impact. We have, the costs are already there. Not all in the same class, obviously, but if you can get $15,000 or $20,000, and there's certainly people paying that to send their kids to Derryfield or Bishop Brady, that would send their kids to Hopkinton, and that's a $400,000 positive impact on your budget. So that's a lot of people. I think maybe some of those same people are raising those same questions. The other side of that equation is we lost X number of students during COVID that are now being homeschooled. And we should know that number because the state has to report back to the district that there's X number of students that used to be, they're still theoretically in the district, but now they're being homeschooled.
If
So-
we're homeschooled, we don't get any money.
We don't, I understand
Okay.
we don't get any money, but we know, we should know that there's 30, and again, just a number, that there's 30 students in your district that next year their parents may decide that it's better that they be back in the public school system as to being homeschooled. So it's, it's a double-edged sword, but these are the kinds of questions that people ask, and rightly so. I don't know where you want to take that discussion.
Do you want her to respond to that? Like, do we have that information?
No, I'm not asking for any specific numbers, but just to kind of back up and have a little more philosophical conversation about it. These are the kind of questions that people ask.
I was just going to add that this is really the only time that we can determine what the cost of marginal capacity, adding capacity to our school system, can be answered. Because as time goes on and as students come in and that capacity starts getting filled up, we won't have as clear of an idea as we do right now to answer how much does it cost to add extra student capacity.
But are we going on the path though that we're denying people to come to Hopkinton based on capacity if they want to buy a house?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's just to understand how much does it cost to add capacity to our schools.
So, okay.
It's a simple, hard
What
financial
you do with
question.
that information,
Yeah.
but you're asking a straightforward question, not a per person basis, adding those seats, what did it cost for 4 classrooms?
And I've never heard that in any of this building project stuff.
But the difficulty of answering that question, I think, is what capacity are you asking to build? If you want to put on 20 more new kindergarten kids, that may require a room. But if you're bringing in 20 kids that are spread over 12 grades plus kindergarten, it has no effect, basically.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's a different question.
I'm only asking the new classroom.
Yep, so I'm going to do 3rd grade, current 3rd grade is in there right now. So what I'm going to ask is the cost per pupil based on the valuation of the building project. So if it was $3 million to do that specific location, what's the value of, like, say, 80 students in there or something like that, and give you a rough number? I can do that, yeah.
Going back to the beginning of this whole building project, I remember we were all sort of gasped when we said, how many buildings are we going to add? How many rooms are we going to add? It was $500,000 per room.
Yep.
That includes hallways, it includes everything else. But you just hear that number, you say, that's crazy. How can it possibly cost that much? But you've got all this other general space that you have to add per classroom that adds bills to that number. I remember that number pretty specifically. We're going to do 4 down there at Harold Martin, and that was $2 million.
What'd you think of the tour, by the way? You want to share with the budget committee your thoughts on the tour?
Fantastic. We got our money's worth, fantastic. And one of these extra rooms right now, as I understood the principal talking about it, was that it was going to be used for music or those other things that used to have to be done in a hallway or a closet or whatever.
Yeah.
He now has the space to do an adequate job. They have a conference room that you don't have to go through the entire building. There's no privacy of walking through all those rooms to have a private conversation with a set of parents. And the one that was really shocking to me, how beautiful the new nursing facilities, that was double.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely splendid compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, that was, and when we had our walkthrough, that was probably one of the most important adults that I felt was needed, because once walls are up, you can't really take them down without there being a cost. And the nurse's suite was a little bit more extra money in the project, but it was at that age for those kids to have that additional space. And if we learned anything during the pandemic, to separate kids when they're sick and give them the space that they need and privacy and stuff, I think was very important. And I'm happy to say we got a $10 million project for 12 easily. Inflation and everything was low, and labor was cheap, raw materials was cheap, and we walked this community through every single adult, and even this budget committee. Any adult we did, you guys knew about, and I think it was done well.
Debbie, you had your hand up.
I did. I just it was kind of a different topic, so I just.
Please move us on.
We're ready. I don't want to leave it.
Oh, fine.
Are you done with me?
No.
Oh.
You're not, you're still not.
What's wrong with this, and it may be something that we come back to. I was just wondering how the progression with any was going on the lawsuits that the schools that are involved in is going.
Great question. I don't know.
I'm sorry, what lawsuit?
The lawsuit that the schools are suing the state
Yeah.
because they're denying the funds that should rightfully be coming to our schools.
For an adequate education.
Yes.
Yep.
Adequate education. And I do want to make sure that this stays in a limelight of some sort so that the community knows
Yeah.
what's being done,
Yep.
and I would like to stay informed.
And you guys should be informed, because it was part of our budgeting process that you guys saw when we were doing our budget with you guys. We've allocated resources to there, so we should be updating you on what we know. And as of right now, I don't have any updates for that, but I know yesterday at our board meeting, Rob mentioned there's a new bill and that's going to the Senate to help with offsetting the district not paying early retirement. I mean, you might know about it.
It's, the state would contribute, I believe it's 7.5% of the retirement costs for teachers,
Yep.
police and fire.
Yep.
And, whether that comes into reality or not. don't know.
Yeah, and if that did work out, we would save $525,000 in our budget. And Rob made a great point last night as a board, or anyone that's out there to advocate to the state to get that passed. Because $525,000 is a lot that would help go a long way in a town that's property poor.
I just would like to say that I think this speaks for so many who have for so many years said, there's just so much we can do as a town.
Yep.
We've got to start dealing with what the state is lacking in presenting to the towns, what they're doing. And I just think this is great. And I send kudos to the school districts that are involved in this, because this is what it's going to take in order to help with the property taxes within the towns.
And it's also about advocating in person. We just don't, I don't show up to a meeting. I also, it's important to go in person.
It is.
And right into them too.
Which I do.
So.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jonathan?
Yeah, I just have it's more of a comment, but I've just been thinking about it. I'm concerned about the school's next budget cycle, with inflation being what it is and the increase in costs in food. We always, I feel like, run into this situation where costs go up for the school. the people in the town, like, we like to talk about like not increasing the school budget. And oftentimes, if you keep the budget flat and the costs go up, that becomes a problem. Like we need to increase the budget just to keep pace. And I'm just worried about, it's just a comment, but I'm just worried about what's coming in terms of the cost of the school for the next budgetary cycle. Not that there's much we can do about that, but that the cost rising may be greater than we've seen in a while.
So the way, that's a great question, and just talking with, just in layman's term with Mike about that, is that we're in the position where we already know what our teachers' contracts are, which is important. So we know HEA and HES, so that's something that's kind of fixed, that we know what's going to happen. So we focus our attention around our hiring practice and also on data from years to come, from the past. He has mentioned multiple times his goal is to eliminate this unreserved fund balance. I'm happy to say that that's never going to be gone. There'll be something there, because if we don't use our early retirements, then there's 120,000 automatically in the unreserved fund balance right up from the get-go. But I want to make it clear too that having a small unreserved fund balance is a good thing in my opinion. That's just my opinion, because it helps us protect ourselves in the future. And if we ever need to use Article 10, I'm not saying $1 million is good, but if it's 300 or around there, any way for us to protect our future with unanticipated expenses is a good thing, because we never know what's going to happen. How we delegated this year was a good thing, to the warrants, so we could support our teachers and pass this budget.
Thank you, Norm. Anything else for Norm?
I will, I'm going to get your question answered. I will bring it to the meeting so everyone hears it. Does that work for you, or do you want sooner than that?
Oh, no, whenever it's convenient for you. Not a rush at all.
In your report, say your dad asked tough questions. All right.
Okay, we are gonna turn it over to you, Don.
I don't have much to offer. The clerk's office has been in severe difficulties, as I'm sure Ken is aware of. The town clerk has been out of the office on personal business for quite a bit, and consequently, our records and our information coming back to the precinct has been delayed. So I have the report here, but it really doesn't say anything, because we don't have any revenue yet this year. Those numbers come in through the clerk's office. So it's okay. We're stable. We've got a good checking account, over $100,000 in it. So the precinct is in okay shape and continue to do its normal thing. Hopefully by next meeting we'll have the documents. Wonderful. Any questions for that?
Thank you, Don. Vicki, it seems a little unfair to ask you to give a Hopkinton precinct report in the first meeting. But if you have one, please, you're welcome.
I mean, I'd be glad to pass around this financial statement that Susie sent to me, if you guys want to see it for the first 3 months of the fiscal year. Actually, I don't know if it's the fiscal year, but for the calendar year. But there's a question I have about it. Technically, it seems we lost money in the first 3 months of the year due to general maintenance, which I believe to be the water system project, which I assume you guys know about, over on Briar Hill. But anyway, so there was system upgrade expenses of $30,000 in the first 3 months of the year. So we have a meeting next Thursday, so I'm going to ask what that was, because it did cause us to go into the red for the first quarter of the year. So I'll let you guys know what they tell me. But in general, most of our expenses are lighting, street lighting, and lawyers.
Thank God for that.
Jonathan, you're going to offer your services pro bono?
I can't light a street, Ken. You know that.
Thank you.
They want good lawyers.
Excellent report.
Great.
Okay, we are gonna open up public comment session. Any comments? It's not an obligation, it's an invitation.
was very intrigued.
What's your name?
Maddie,
Maddie what?
Maddie Houston.
Oh, nice.
Welcome, Maddie.
We're working on a majority here.
That's right. Houston's are taking over the world.
You have to be here for what, an hour?
No, I'm kidding.
75 minutes.
75 minutes? Yeah, so people choose the budget committee because it's probably the shortest. The school board, here at the school board meeting a couple times, and they're a one. Yeah. Chose a good one.
Are you doing a project?
Yeah, for civics class, we have to come and watch like a low.
Nice.
The 7 high school seniors in civics sitting in front of us at the school district meeting were a little disappointed about how smoothly the district meeting went. They wanted a little more controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't 75 minutes.
Thank you for joining us. Great, I'm going to close the public comment session because there's nobody on the Zoom. And let me ask if there's any other business to come before the board this evening.
When will be our next meeting?
So we're going to talk about that.
That was my question.
That was your question too. That is the topic.
Okay.
Evening. So it's for Vicky's benefit, it's somewhat customary for us to take a break from all this grueling work. Now, there's not a lot to do for the budget committee in the summer, really, until we are further into the fiscal year for our various entities and until we begin to think about the budget process. So I guess I would entertain comments from the committee. I don't see a pressing need for us to meet until perhaps August. So I guess maybe I'll just put that out there as a straw proposal. But if you all would like to meet sooner than that, for one reason or another, let's open it up to the committee.
I had been thinking August also.
August is great. June unpacked.
Will that be a barbecue at your house
At my house.
or a formal?
Rich offered to do a barbecue out in front of the town hall at one point. We could try to do that
Sure.
if the town hall doesn't shut us
I
down.
was thinking food for our meeting.
We go to do a retreat as a committee. Do that at the farmers.
Well,
Some bread you could make for us.
That's right.
yes.
Give you all a free stall to sleep in.
Not free.
So we would be looking at August 10th, which is the second Wednesday of August as our next meeting. I know that may overlap with some folks' summer plans, so.
I think Krista had something to say.
Oh, pardon me.
It's not related to the timing, so let's agree on the date and then
Okay.
I'll bring it up.
August 10th would be our regular schedule.
I think I'll be away, but you don't have to change the meeting based on that.
Don't we zoom in?
Does anybody else have no conflict August 10th?
Hopefully somewhere with no internet.
Yeah, New York City, I don't think they have it.
No, down. Okay, let's go with August 10th. Then let's plan on that and we can,
I
if
might be, yeah.
plans change, please let me know and we can adjust that date if we need to. Krista?
Yes, sorry, I think I should have brought this up during Ken's presentation, but Ken, we had a question from a member of the community near one of our last meetings of the prior term about the the transfer station and the budget there. I think it would be useful for me at least. I wasn't sure if there's like an opportune moment for us to maybe, and it's probably before we dive into like school budgeting, to just do focus like one of our meetings, at least a portion of it on kind of reviewing transfer, because we never get into that level of detail.
Okay, I had mentioned at a select board meeting that we needed to do a deeper dive into the operations of the transfer station in this current year, so that, after that, sure.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know that you're doing that. So whatever the outcome or presentation of that is would be nice to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good thought.
That's great. Let's plan on that.
I just wanted to mention it ahead so that I have time to think about it.
Thank you. Any other business tonight?
I'd just like to make a comment that I thought your presentation at the district meeting was fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's sort of, Rich was thrown under the front of the bus one time back a couple of years ago to do that. But I think that's what I certainly envisioned the chair of the budget committee getting up and doing. You know, as our responsibility, it's our budget number that you start with. And the fact that, you know, you had the ability to get up and do that, you did a hell of a good job when you did it. Is what I envisioned what this committee is about and how you present yourself at that meeting. But
Thanks.
good job.
I should apologize for not thinking to invite you to come up for the town side.
I don't want to do it there.
I'll remember that next year.
They don't dress up as much at the town side.
We can talk, yeah, right. We can talk about that next year. So I actually wish we had talked about it as a budget committee. But thank you and happy to, I think it is appropriate for us to make a statement.
Just sets a good tone.
Yeah.
I've never experienced a district meeting like that.
Nobody has.
Never, and it really comes from you guys asking the great questions. That, you know, I don't want to say the word trust, but building relationships with you guys. You know, it's just been a learning experience for myself, but also just the community can see that.
Yeah.
And it's really important.
I had to buy like 11 subs
Yeah.
at the end of it because they had some of the subs.
Well, kudos, I think, to the school board too.
Yeah,
You guys
exactly.
have turned this honesty and you know, transparency, as much as I hate that word,
Yeah.
around. And I think that the town, I think, what my flavor is that they have more faith.
We're very fortunate to have a board that's really working together and also just continuing to improve its budgeting process and directing superintendent to make changes where he runs the district, and it's a very different feeling than what it's been in the last couple of years for me, and I've learned a lot, so we continue learning.
I was also heartened to see the vote on the teacher contract.
Yeah.
Because it was a very strong vote, and I think that was appropriate, and I think it showed some good support for the difficult jobs that our teachers have by the town. So I just thought that vote particularly was important.
I was just wondering if in I realize this is very early, but in next year's school report, at the annual school district meeting, if we could please have a line in that for how much the town pays for each student to educate. You know, we used to have that chart where like Hopkinton was ranked, how much we paid.
Oh, okay, so like the cost per pupil?
Yeah, like something for the citizen to look at.
Isn't that in our audit? In like the last page, it does like the last couple of years and it goes up and it says how much it costs, like 17,000.
I didn't see it.
I believe there's,
It used to be a bit of sure. You open up another can of worms, though, I think. And it's not bad. No, let me just finish.
yeah,
The number that we all talk about as the cost per student is a state generated equal comparison to all school districts. And it just lists every school district from start to finish. But that is really not the total cost of educating a child in any of these towns, because by design, it keeps out the busing and the bonding. I think those are the two major ones. So it really isn't telling the full story, but it's the story that we all use to compare how Hopkins is doing to others. If you're really going to get down to it, you really need to come up with dividing that bottom number by whatever the student head count is.
Yep.
And that's what it is. It's closer, way closer to 20 than it is to whatever we normally say is 17 or 18, it would seem.
yeah, so I'll go back to the board saying that Don Houston wants to come up with that number. Thank you.
You guys can come up with a number.
No, we can.
But it's not really telling the story, but it's the story we use to compare ourselves.
Yeah, there's a number that come up with like Jonathan said, each student has its own needs and other things in that number, so it'd be an average of what it is.
But what you could do, you couldn't get that number for every school district. But if we generated it for the town every year, we could chart the town cost
That's what,
over time. Like, because we have our data.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we can at least see how it looks over time. It might not tell us that much in 2 years, but it might tell us a lot more over 10 or 20.
that's
I don't know what
exactly
the-
the question I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
Because at the end of the school district, were you there?
yeah.
At the end of the school district meeting, I asked, how much does it cost our town
Yep.
to educate each student?
Yep.
And then how much does it cost in total when you figure in the state and federal funds? And I think it was 23,500 when you figured in all the state and federal funds, and it was 17,100 what Hopkinton pays.
Yep, after the warrants pass is what you asked.
Yes,
Correct.
but I looked through and it was really, would have been really hard for other people to find those figures.
But you asked the question, it was a good question, because you want to know what it is after and before and all that and see what the difference is, because it keeps increasing.
So my question, if it could be added in next year's town report.
Yeah,
Or sorry, school district.
yeah, what we'll do is we'll have a discussion with Mike and see what he wants to do for that, and we can advocate and talk to him about it. I can bring it to his attention too.
Thank you very much.
If you do that, you have to do both numbers. Because if you only do that number, then someone will grab it and compare it to
Right,
what's published by the state and which will be an apples to ours.
right.
You really
So you
have
to
For
be-
sure.
So
Yeah,
both
for sure.
numbers actually have relevance for different purposes.
You
One
have
is
a
more
real
benchmark.
explanation of what the two numbers are.
So I would say if you do that, I would encourage you to do both and explain the difference.
It's a good point.
So this, how much the state pays and then what the town of Hopkinton is.
No, I mean both numbers as in what the state report says the cost per pupil.
Oh,
So you can
got it.
benchmark and compare against other districts. And that number has a purpose, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can benchmark against, if you want to, against districts of similar sizes.
Like what the average of all of New Hampshire has per, I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding.
Right, the state publishes every single year the number that it costs per student, right?
Yep.
But in their footnotes, it says all of these numbers do not include transportation
Got it.
and bonding.
Got it.
So if you're gonna deviate from that norm, which everybody basically sees.
Yep.
You've got, as Aaron said here, you got to footnote that and have the other number that says this is the true cost if everything's added.
Got it.
I want the true cost, not the state cost.
And again, the only usefulness is to, when you track it, where are we going? Obviously, when you have a new bond, you're gonna add more money on. But we're gonna have that bond payment for a long time. Transportation, that's gonna be, it's basically, it's pretty much fixed. But it doesn't tell the whole story.
So my earlier question about how much does it cost to add student capacity? And then this question about how much does it actually cost us per year? Then we can have some general idea how much it will cost us to add students in our district.
If you want to do that, if I just could make one more comment. I think you also need to know what's the carrying capacity of each building. Because if you're adding students without saying relative to the carrying capacity and the current capacity, you're going to get a skewed view.
So do it for each building.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about what's the cost of adding 10 students to the middle high school.
Yeah.
But you're at 30 below the carrying capacity of the middle high school, then you're going to get a flawed sense of what it
Right.
actually costs. So
Exactly.
that's the third piece I think you have to understand.
That went back to the theory when we had all these arguments about what's the cost for tuitioning a student in? Is it a good thing to do it? But if you're lacking capacity, not lacking capacity, you have too much capacity, bringing in tuition students is a good idea.
Yeah, and this is what Steve was getting at
That's
before.
just gravy.
It's just,
But,
yeah.
And then if you build the system, build the school based on that capacity, and then they go away, then now you got too much capacity.
Okay, so the board sets a tuition rate for if anyone wants to come in here. We've talked about in the past, if there's space in a specific grade level or whatnot, and there's a set tuition rate for that student to come in here. Of course, we're not you know, special ed is a different thing and all that, but I think last year was $17,001, if I recall. But again, that's through a whole different process, your application process, interviews and all that stuff, and direction of the superintendent.
Let's see, the opposite is true too. If you bring in tuition students, and Steve Chamberlain said they're gonna stay for their entire 13 years or whatever, and then you get a bump of students coming in, then all of a sudden those tuition students didn't save you money, they costed you money, because you had to add new capacity, like we did at the elementary school. And if we knew how much it cost to add new capacity, then we could make the decision whether bringing in tuition students pays over the long term, or not, because we could use that number as an opportunity cost.
I see what you're saying.
It's difficult at best.
Well, I mean, it's actually not that difficult because we should be, the number, what's our capacity? Should be a number that's fairly ascertainable. The number, what is our true incremental cost, which I would argue is pretty low, that should be fairly ascertainable. I mean, these aren't big mysterious numbers that we're asking.
But as Steve Chamberlain said, if you bring the tuition students in, now you've got your own
Yeah,
needs.
I mean, the reality is,
Yeah, if you bring in the tuition students, you can't kick them out, basically.
right, but I mean, the reality is most parents are gonna pay to send their kids to high school. Most towns around here have fairly decent elementary schools, with one or two exceptions, where they want to send their kids is to Hopkinton High School. What is our high school capacity compared to how many students we have right now? And what is the true incremental cost? It's nowhere near $17,000 or $20,000 a year.
It is if you have to add new capacity.
If you, yes, if you have to
That's the
add.
point of
start
understanding
adding
the building
space,
capacity.
Okay.
Well, I think we can start with getting information, that's what people want, and then you can have conversation about.
These
what
aren't,
needs to
these
be
aren't
done.
mysterious numbers.
No,
These
not.
are numbers that are, should be fairly readily ascertainable.
Of course, the other thing to think about is capacity without changing ratios.
Yes, and.
Because as soon as you start talking about changing
Yeah,
ratios.
and as I
capacity
said
will
earlier,
change.
we should know how many students may, there may be all kinds of juniors, seniors, and, sophomores and juniors out there that their parents are gonna send them back next year because they're sick of homeschool.
Can I ask?
And
you,
my impression from people in the community, there's a pretty big number of kids that were pulled out of school to homeschool the last couple of years.
I want to answer your question the best I can. Can I ask you to send it to me and so I can have it correctly worded for Michelle and Mike? Would that be appropriate to ask you to do, if you don't mind? I want to have it answered the best way possible. You don't mind? You're the best.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that when we started the budget committee when we started the new budget season this last time,
Yeah.
the way Mike presented his bottom line, where he wanted to keep everything.
Yeah.
That really, I think, set the tone for a good working
Yep.
environment, and then went from there and said what he needed, how he came to that.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that kind of procedure?
Yeah, so we're gonna do the same thing, starting our budget process early. And I want to present to you guys the same format they're comfortable with our starting process, because there was many ways of how we felt the budget process was great last year. Instead of bringing you guys the budget that was complete, you guys can see all the wants and needs and ask questions and go from there. It was his first time doing it with you guys, and he's learned a lot, and I think he's just building that relationship with you guys. And yeah, but I anticipate exactly the same format that we come here in November with an all-in budget. And then from there, it's going to be the board making directions to him on what we're going to do.
I just wanted to say that just to get in a little plug, that I thought it went well.
Yeah.
Presenting it that way, and I know it was his first time, but I think that it was a positive first time, and I would like to see it continue.
Yeah, if you guys all want that, I'm happy to do it. The goal is to start this budget. I'm ready to start it now, but.
They're not.
No.
Krista?
I just wanted to second Debbie's comment, basically, for the record. I agree that it was helpful to have time between meetings to have follow-up items, and without him coming in early, that would have been crunched.
Please pass along the kudos.
I will. And the last comment I want to say is, congratulations to you too for your child graduating this year. It's an exciting opportunity for graduation. So,
Hasn't happened yet, but thank you.
Are we supposed to swear you in, or is that not a thing?
No, that happened at the
Oh, at
school
the
meeting, Yeah. right? And you got sworn in as well, Debbie, right? Yes,
I was,
sworn in, not swore at.
Yes.
Swear in.
Next time. And
Your
you're right
brother
back at
did-
you.
your son did a good speech last night at the board meeting.
Oh, yeah, you'll have to tell me about that. I didn't hear it. Yeah. I didn't even know it was going. Okay, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Thank you again, Vicky. Thank you, Maddie, for coming. Gets a little lonely in here. No.